Alright, class, let's begin with lesson 58. We have today's lesson and tomorrow's lesson, and then you're going to have a test on Friday, which I'll email to your parents. Lesson 58, also you can check your grades on your grade book from your last test. They are slipping a little bit. We have some cracks in our foundation that we need to fix when we get back in January. So there's some common patterns. Some people are starting to make little mistakes that are costing them A's. So check your grades. Mostly they were good, but I did notice that we were not quite as good as we were. Anyway, let's go to lesson 58. This is percentage word problems. I think these are the hardest things for me to teach because there's so many different ways you can do it, yet there's no real formula to do it. It has to just make sense in your head. So let's look at a couple of examples and maybe I can help you make sense of these things. After the herbicide was applied, only 39 weeds remained. If there were originally 150, what percent remained? So you need to try to write this into a sentence that has less words. Like we're going to take out words like herbicide, applied, weeds. We're just going to boil it down to numbers. So what we're looking for is what percent. Well, what percent of what? What percent of 150? That's originally. What percent of our original amount ended up being 39? So we would say, what percent of 150 left us with only 39 weeds? So first thing I try to do is to write it into a sentence that only has numbers in it and then our standard equation words. So now we can do some replacing into algebra. So what percent would be our x? Of is our times. 150 equals 39. So we have our equation now. We would say 150x equals 39. We divide both sides by 150. And we get x equals 0.26. Now, that's not a percent, that's a decimal, so they're asking what percent, so we need to change that into percentage, so we would say x equals 26%. So 26% of 150 is 39. So that's how we do it. We were going to write it into an equation without a lot of words, and then we're going to write it into a math equation. Let's try the next one. What's going to happen here is the x, the what part, is going to change in each of these problems, what we're looking for. So you can always look back at which example, like if you're looking for the percent, you might want to look at this problem. This one's different. So the ski shop started the season with 800 pairs of skis. If 25% of the skis were worn out during the season, how many pairs did the shop have left? So they started out with 800 pairs of skis. They wore out 25% of them, and they want to know how many is left. So we write it in an equation. 25% of 800 is what? Once you write that down as in simple words, then it should be easy to translate into algebra. So 25, we'd say 0.25 of means multiply is what? And then all we do is multiply those two together, and we would get 2. So 25% is the number of skis that were worn out. You have to watch. These can be really tricky. Skis worn out. But they want to know how many pairs did the shop have left. So we figured out that there's 200 that were worn out. Since it started with 800, we're going to subtract off the worn out skis, and we have 800 skis left. If there's words in your problems, you should have words in your answers. Skis left. Make sure you answer the question and don't just get caught up with doing the percentage problem. Now this number 3, example 3, is the most difficult type. If it says had increased by, we're going to need a plus in our problem. Need a plus in the problem. There's a couple different kinds. All of a sudden my pen's going wacko on me. Okay. So this time, the squirrel had 200 acres stored. By December, the total had increased by 8%. What was the new total? So we have a squirrel. He has 200 acorns. Increased by, so we're going to put plus. Now, it's increased by 87%. We're not going to put, this is wrong, so I'm going to erase it in a minute, 0.87. We're not going to do that. It's not increased by 0.87. It's increased by 87% of what we started with. So this is totally wrong. Don't do that. But I'll show you what you do. It's increased by 87% of what he started with. So it's 87 times 200. So it's the 200 that the squirrel had plus 87% of the 200. It increased by 87%. And then we don't know what the total was. So we're going to have the what up there this time. So we're going to do our multiplication first. Please excuse my dearie. Multiplication before addition. So we're going to get, that is 174 equals x. So x equals 374 acorns. Words in your problems, words in your answer, except if it's a percent. That's all you need is a percent. Now you need to make sure it makes sense. Squirrel had 200 acorns. It increased by 87%. The new total is, if it would doubled, if it would have been 100%, we would have had 200 plus 200. But it's 87%, so that's close to 400, because that's close to 100%. So that is it. These can be, as I said, percent problems can be really tricky. But if you can translate it into a sentence and then translate it into an equation, it shouldn't be too bad. So make sure you do this lesson today. Do all your problems, check all your answers. Try to get help on the help board. No one's been posting anything on the help board this week. And we have one more lesson to do tomorrow.